Hi, I'm Catherine Brunch of Canine Support, and thank you for joining us today to celebrate 50 years of Tellington TTouch. Today, I am joined by the marvellous Rachel Jackson of Well Balanced Animals, who is one of our four UK Tellington TTouch instructors for companion animals. Welcome, Rachel. Thank you for coming along.
Hi, Catherine. Thank you for asking me.
Very welcome. So to start us off, Rachel, let's talk a little bit about what kind of first drew you to Tellington Tea Touch and the other stuff that you also do.
Ooh. So, when I got married nearly 30 years ago, we got our first dog, and he was a rescue lurcher. The rescue, they said, oh, he would be perfect first dog, really easy. Didn't have anything that sort of showed up in the kennels. He was actually other dog reactive and he struggled with very specific men. We worked out a certain type of look, which was unfortunately my father's look.
Mm.
So that didn't overly help. So I started learning about dog behavior and I was undertaking a course at a place that is now called Sheila Harper's Canine Centre, which in those days was one of the very few that only used positive training methods because I am going back 28 years, 28 plus. Um, so I did their dog trainer and behavior course because I wanted to find ways to help Finn. And things were helping. We were making progress, but I realized that we'd kind of plateaued. We'd reached a point that we were doing everything we needed to do and things had improved, but there was something missing. And I realized that he was still feeling the fear,
Mm.
which is why we were still having some of the behaviors. And the other thing about Sheila Harper's Canine Centre is they had a lot of visiting guests to give workshops, talks, etc. And they put on a Tea Touch weekend. I'd never heard of Tea Touch before, but because it was on at Sheila's, I thought, well, it's going to be great, so I'll go along. So went along with one of our other dogs and was fascinated by it. I came home, did a little bit of a kind of an experiment with one of our dogs because she was a senior girl, which is quite apt seeing as that's our talk this evening, who had come to us not very long before as a foster dog, and she was exceptionally unsteady on her legs. She was in really poor condition. And I just did a little bit of tea touch every day. Nobody else knew about it. Just when there was 5, 10 minutes, and only simply what I'd picked up over the weekend. So I didn't have a massive amount of knowledge. After I'd been doing this for about a week, my mum visited and she was looking at Freckles, and I'm thinking, don't ask anything, Rachel, just see what she says. Because I'd noticed an improvement. And she said, Freckles is standing better, isn't she? And I think so. She's not as wobbly, is she? Well, I think so. And her coat looks much better as well. That's really quick. Well, yes, I think so as well. And within a really short space of time, although that wasn't the reason I was interested in T-Touch, I saw what a difference it made for our senior girl. And I just went, still don't know how it works, but I'm booking on the course. So I booked on the September training that year, and kind of the rest was history because once you learn about how much even just a little of T-Touch can help, you just become addicted, really. It's just you can't stop. And that's kind of everything that I've studied has kind of been led by one of our dogs.
Yeah.
So Finn predominantly with the training side and then led into the T-touch. I, I'm qualified in acupressure, which
Mhm.
has always fascinated me. Um, and I also learnt I'm qualified in zoopharmacognosy. I did that with Caroline Ingraham, another fascinating topic.
Yeah.
And then in 2016, I went back to university because a lot of the dogs that I was seeing with the T-Touch, I was saying, you need to go to your vets. There's something not quite right. You need this checking. So that's when I went back to university and did my veterinary physiotherapy course as well. So I think there's just so much that we can know. We can't know everything,
No,
but it's also led me to lots of other people who know lots of other things as well. So it's kind of we're very lucky in this country that we have so many amazing people to help us with our dogs.
absolutely. And I think that's also one of the amazing things about T-Touch in how we can incorporate it into all sorts of other bits and pieces as well, like the physio, like the acupressure, it just, and training in general, it just all fits so nicely together, doesn't it? And I absolutely get it about it's totally addictive.
It is because it's so beneficial
It
that,
is.
why would you not?
Absolutely, absolutely. I remember I had a T-Touch practitioner come to my house. For that was my first experience of T-Touch. I was hooked straight away. That was it. Like, right, what's the next workshop course, whatever. So yeah, brilliant stuff. And today we are going to talk about our older dogs, our golden oldies, who are so wonderful and lovely. Do love a golden oldie.
Yep.
And they are so precious to us as well, aren't they, at this age? And there are so many different ways that T-Touch can help our older dogs, but we will try and chunk it down into kind of sections of the elements of T-Touch so that we don't just kind of ramble on about everything all at once. So, starting with T-Touch bodywork, let's talk about how can that benefit our golden oldies.
So if I use Freckles as an example, actually, she was a lurcher, another one, who came to us. The vet thought she was probably about 13, came to us as a foster. They weren't doing well in the kennels. It was her and probably her daughter, they thought. And her body awareness was very poor. She was very wobbly, even if she was just stood still. She was really unstable. She'd lost so much muscle tone. There was very little muscle tone at all. And generally, she was in really poor condition. And even, I say just, but there is no just with T-Touch because it is so amazing. I was doing a few Python lifts on her back legs. I was doing a little bit of abalone along her body, a little bit of ear T-Touch. Just whenever she was quite comfortable with me doing it and there was nobody else around because that was part of my little experiment. So there wasn't a massive amount of body work that I was doing, but basing what I was doing on my observations of her and where she was comfortable with contact as well, and where I maybe had to just shift a little bit what I was doing. Actually, we made such amazing difference for her in her balance and coordination and movement in a very short period of time. And the thing with that is when we consider dogs of any age, but especially our seniors who are going through some changes, we then find that maybe they don't feel as safe and secure anymore.
Hmm.
That their hearing may be going, their eyesight might be going. So there's lots of little things that may be going on for them that mean that they don't feel as comfortable and relaxed as maybe they used to. And again, that's where T-Touch can really help these dogs feel that little bit more secure as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of. bless our older dogs, there's a lot that suffer with arthritis as well, isn't there? And pain can be a big factor as they get older. How can T-Touch help with some of that discomfort?
So, one thing I always ask is check for any changes in behavior,
Mm,
because one thing that we do often see is they may not limp. There may not be anything overly obvious visually, but pain can be present. So, when we're thinking about our dogs and pain, it's thinking about, is it one joint? Is it more than one? There are so many different ways that our dogs may have arthritis. They may be prone to it. Some dogs, it may only be in one joint because they've had damage to that joint when they were younger and it set up the bony changes. But if that's the case, then it's the same as us. If you imagine us walking maybe with a Lego brick in our shoe, that's really uncomfortable even to stand on one, let alone walk in one.
yeah.
So, how much it gets us to shift our weight through our body. So, as humans being two-legged, we'd probably shift our weight over to the other leg, which sometimes our dogs do. You may find they almost lean to one side, or they may put more weight on a different limb, sometimes the opposite diagonal.
Mm,
So every dog, as we know in T-Touch, every dog is an individual and unique. So is how they manage when there's something going on for them physically. So it's about how that's going to affect them and how that's going to make them feel tight and sore and a little bit sensitive. And it may be that you don't notice any change in gait, but something like they're not as comfortable with us grooming them as they
mm,
used to be because they're tight through the skin. Or another thing that can happen is they may start to struggle at the groomers because they can't stand still for that length of time, or they can't lift a paw to have the nails clipped.
mm,
So there's lots of ways that by using T-Touch at home, we can help them feel more comfortable through the body but also get help ease that tightness and tension through the skin. So it's not in replacement of veterinary treatment. These dogs, depending on the level, supplements help, but that's not pain relief. And they may need some degree of pain relief. And the other thing I will say there as well, which is something I find I say a lot to physio clients, is if one isn't working, go back because your vet doesn't know that it's not working. There's
yeah.
lots of different options these days of different types of meds because actually we want them to be as comfortable and happy as possible. And T-Touch can be a big part of that. Even if they're sat on the settee with you, a little bit of ear work, a little bit of maybe hair slides,
Mm.
if they're a little bit sensitive through the body, to just help them relax that little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of going back to what you were saying about grooming, is that Chloe's now 12-ish, maybe. And the last sort of year or so, I noticed that I do a couple of brushes with her, and then I pause and she kind of walks around a little bit, like a leg stretch almost, and then brush her again, and she needs that movement in between. So that, obviously standing still a lot is hard for her in one place. So that sort of movement in between is really nice. And normally Remy's there as well, so I'll do a bit on Remy and do a bit on Chloe, and so they take turns. But yeah, it's important to notice those sorts of changes, isn't it? And I think being in winter, I mean, it's been mild here, really, hasn't it, at the moment? I don't know about where you are, up country slightly, but it's
Up north.
yeah, slightly warmer than normal. But I definitely notice in the winter with Chloe, especially like frosty nights, it's really interesting how I let her out for a nighttime wee. We come back in, and the hair just over her bottom and hips, just raises like it's like her hackles have gone up,
Mm.
but just over her bum. And I'm like, oh, okay. Do a little bit of T-touch, that flattens down again. And I'm like, right, okay. It's like that instant by just going out in the cold for a wee. It's like extreme changes, isn't it? That we can notice. And I'm like, oh, a bit more T-touch. At some point, I will remember to take a photo of it. I haven't yet. It's normally because I've left my phone on the sofa or something. But yeah, it's those sorts of things to look for, isn't it? That's coat changes and patterns as well as everything else that's going on for them.
Absolutely, because coat changes can tell us so much about what is going on for them or may be going on for them. It might be that it guides us to do a little bit of T-touch, not necessarily in that area as a starting point.
Yeah,
We tend to kind of
absolutely.
go, oh, there's something there, we need to go there. But actually, we may need to start somewhere else for them to be comfortable with our contact,
Yeah,
particularly if it's something that we're doing that's new to them,
yeah, absolutely.
because it can be really, oh, what you doing? Oh, not so sure. So, because one thing that I do love about T-touch is they can be stood up, sat down, laying down. So, for our seniors who, you know, and that again, that term, it's a little bit leading because a senior for one breed can be a lot older or younger than for another. But typically they're looking at their final 25 to 33% of their typical lifespan as a breed. So, when you know that they're heading that way, there's lots of things that we can do to be proactive rather than reactive.
Yeah.
So we know as humans, up until we're about 30, 35, we keep adding muscle. Then as we go the other way, we start to lose it. And it's quite gradual. Dogs do the same.
Mm,
So it's about maintaining that muscle that helps support the joints. It's about maybe shifting what we do a little bit to make a few things easier for them. I'm not as young as I used to be. I don't necessarily jump out of bed as quickly as I used to. It's a little bit, oh, okay, let's move. So, even thinking about their bedding, is it supportive enough for them now? Particularly if you've found that your dog does have arthritic changes, a nice supportive bed
mm,
make all the difference to if they're getting enough sleep or not. And sleep is so important for us, both mentally and physically. Same for our dogs. So, have a look at how they sleep. Do they curl up? Do they like to lie out? Um, I've got some dogs who are clients who really like a bolster, somewhere to rest the head.
yeah.
So thinking about what would work best for them. Or you may have a greyhound who thinks that your bed is their bed, and that just works perfectly as well. But then she doesn't go upstairs during the day, so she needs a bed downstairs. So Amaya is 11 now. So she comes under the senior category. So it's just checking these things. And like you say, particularly this time of year, you may start to see a few little changes in them that actually we can just make things easier for them, observe them, video them. Great fan of videoing because then you can watch it back, the same clip over and over and over, and you can go,
Yeah.
ooh, because you miss things with the naked eye that when you see the same thing a few times that you can pick up on.
Yeah.
So, our observations in T-touch are as important as actually what we do because they help us be more appropriate, maybe in the T-touches that we choose, or, again, just do a few, take your hand off, watch for their responses, and see how we can make their lives easier for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know about your dogs, Rachel, but like Chloe is a proper T-touch junkie. I mean, she's had what about 8 years worth of it now. So yeah, they once they learn that it's nice, they can be like, more, please.
Yes, but it's also interesting that if that changes,
Mm,
is there something physical going on for them as well? So if they're a more senior dog, do they start to sleep somewhere else? Do they not stay next to you where they may have been before? But yes, the mayor will just kind of go, you can keep going, thank you very much. Yep,
absolutely.
absolutely. You just keep going on. I'm quite happy with this. This is really nice. What's really nice is then when you see them just do a really big stretch and you just kind of go, yes, that's what we wanted to see.
Absolutely. And I don't think I've spoken about this in the previous interviews, but sometimes, any of our dogs, but particularly we're talking about our older dogs, they can possibly present a side, if they have got discomfort, they'll present the side that isn't or hasn't got that discomfort first, isn't it? And I see that with Chloe a lot. She'll present the same side for several nights in a row. She has her TTouch when I'm in bed with her, so she'll present that same side, and then she'll go, okay, now I trust you to do the side that's perhaps a little bit tenser or a little bit of discomfort. There's that in it as well, isn't it? It's interesting to watch how that works.
Absolutely. And their habits are
Mm,
things that we don't tend to be overly aware of because we know, oh, well, that's just what they've always done. They always lie on their right side. They always do this. And it's kind of wondering, well, why is that?
mm,
Is there a reason? Is there a reason that maybe they find it easier to get up if they're lying on one side compared to the other, if they've got a weaker leg or a stronger leg or a sore limb, even?
mm,
Their habits can change, which is where a comfort diary can be really useful as well. So keeping just a little bit of a check of what's their normal, and
mm.
then does it change? So dogs are very good at presenting themselves in a way that they are more comfortable with. And then we've just kind of got to pick up on that pattern,
Yeah.
which again can be hard for us because, particularly if you live with them, it's just, oh, okay, you're on that side again. And sometimes we might assume it's because it's the end of a settee and they're always on that side. But then if you move, is it always the same side again? It can be tricky to pick up on that. Um, so yeah, that they are very good at that kind of thing.
They are definitely awesome. So, well, what is my next question? The enrichment playground or free work, how can that help our older dogs? How can doing kind of sniffing, licking, searching exercises help?
In lots of ways. Firstly, it may be what encourages them to move when they've got out of the habit of moving. So if getting up is difficult for them, then giving them a reason to get up, giving them something, like say, enriching, something a little bit different for them that engages their different senses can be amazingly important for them mentally as well as physically. So it's about encouraging them to move in a way that they are comfortable doing so that they can, do they turn to the left? Do they turn to the right? But also, if you've got a bigger dog, think about having things slightly raised. So I've mentioned that we had lurchers, we've now got a greyhound and a borzoi. So quite tall dogs. If we're expecting these dogs who are physically maybe not as mobile as they were to always lean down, it's encouraging weight forward. Actually, if we can maybe put something up on a wall or up on a raised surface, tie something off a door hook, a door handle, those kind of things, to encourage them to sort of look in different heights as well. So they're moving around, they're engaged, because some of our senior dogs might not want to go out as much in this cold, wet weather. So actually making sure that they are moving stops, particularly if they're an arthritic dog, stops them getting that stiffness of not moving around enough. And the other thing that I would suggest to people if they're not sure is a lot of the trackers that you buy have an activity
Mm,
level, so you can see some of them will say how much sleep they've had, some of them it's steps, some of them will say how much they've been moving at speed. So actually it can give you an idea of again what their norm is and then seeing how that alters as well. So, as well as all the mental and physical benefits, having our senior dogs walking on different surfaces is amazing for their proprioceptive awareness, and particularly for longer back dogs, bigger dogs, they lose some of that proprioceptive awareness as they age. They're not as sure of how high they're lifting a hind leg. You might hear it just scuff a little bit on a floor. And that again is where check the nail wear.
mm,
Because if you've got a nail that is particularly worn down, maybe on the inside, if that was, say, a dog's paw and this side of this nail was worn, then you know that it's probably rotating the limb a little bit and it's got more weight on the inside of the foot than the outside of the foot. So, encouraging them to do little step ups, onto different surfaces, not talking about unstable surfaces
no.
because I do sometimes see online videos of physiotherapy type exercises where they're using unstable surfaces. Those are kind of your up here exercises. If your dog isn't standing on a stable floor, balanced with four legs at each corner and not wobbling, we are not going on to unstable surfaces. But
No.
giving different textures that are safe for them, that aren't going to slip under the feet, are amazing for helping with that body awareness and keeping the body moving and fit to the best that they're able to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know more in the summer when we do stuff with Chloe, and I mean she just lights up. You can see it in her face. She's just like, "Oh, I'm in my happy place." Do you know? And I definitely think it helps to kind of stave off some of the doggy dementia, if you like, because sometimes I do
It does.
wonder. But that whole kind of mental stimulation and the learning and the fun and the achievement that they get out of it is just so beneficial for them, isn't it? And it's so low impact too. Do you know, they can take their own time and move wherever they want and avoid whatever they want if it's too
Yeah.
difficult. It's just fantastic for them, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the other thing with our senior dogs is we may have got quite into habits of where we walk them, routes that we do, mix it up a little bit.
Mm,
Maybe take them somewhere new for sniffies. So, Amaya has a problem with her foot at the moment. She's not going out for walks. But I've been putting her in the van and taking her to different places, and she can get out and have a little sniff around, but she can't go for walks. I open the side of the van and she's virtually galloping there, and it's kind of, no, that's really not good for you. But these are the kind of things that help keep them mentally stimulated. Dogs do get canine cognitive dysfunction. The more that we can keep them mentally agile, introducing new things that are safe and but novel to them. This novel stimulus, whether it's mental or physical, keeps the nervous system learning, keeps them happier. And
yeah,
that's what's really important. And if they can't go out, the other thing is bring sniffs home with you.
Mm,
Cut up an old t-shirt, take it out, wipe it on surfaces that, are safe to bring home, obviously, or bring home a few leaves in a bag and put those as part of your enrichment as well. So bring the outdoors, maybe the different places that they used to go to, bring those back with you as well.
mm. Do you know, I always find it funny if I've been out and put the car in the garage and then I take the dogs out for a walk, we go back in the garage because that's where I dry them off. Remy is always fascinated with the smells on the car. She's always fascinated, so you don't even have to pick anything up there. You just drive somewhere, drive back, and then here you can have a sniff around the car. Or whether that's just the farmyard I drive through, I don't know.
Might have something to do with it, because that would certainly be
Probably.
interesting.
Definitely, definitely. Um, Rachel, how would we use the body wraps with our older dogs?
Gosh.
Briefly.
Yeah, I was about to say each of these, they're such big questions because it's like all of them. There's so many ways that the body wraps can help, that sense of safety,
Mm,
that sense of feeling secure. If they've got a little bit high-headed, that shortens the back up a little bit. So maybe actually a neck wrap to soften them a little bit through the neck, or have them aware if they're holding tension through there, that actually this is where your neck is, this is how it feels, and see what options that gives them as well. The other
mm,
thing that I use the body wraps for a lot with senior dogs is to do little lifts,
yeah.
both underneath the legs. So if this was a leg, just sort of under there, but only taking tiny, tiny, tiny little bit because those areas just get so jammed and tight, particularly if they're not moving as well as they used to. Or over the top as well. So not just underneath the limbs, but over the top of the hips. Just do a little bit of a stretch with the body wrap. Just gives that different sense without it being our hands, because our hands might be too much. For some dogs, as they become seniors or older, how we've made contact with them always actually might be too much.
Mm,
So for some people, I would even say just go to using the back of your hand because that naturally makes us lighter, makes us more aware of what we're doing. And that can be really helpful for people because our habits are hard to break.
yeah.
So going to the back of the hand is an easier way of shifting that contact to something that may be more comfortable, but is also then teaching the nervous system something different as well.
Mm, definitely. And I think as well, with body wraps, just thinking, as our dogs get older, and then maybe we want to have a coat for them in the winter so that they don't get so cold, but maybe they've never worn a coat before. So actually, just introducing a body wrap, a quarter or a half wrap, so that they can experience wearing something without it being straight away intense of here's your coat, off you go kind of thing, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
another example of how we might use these things.
Yes, the same way as if you were introducing a harness,
Hmm.
the body wrap could be really helpful for that as well because it just gives them that sensation on the body. It may be that, you have to think about the shape of the coat
Mm,
as well because something that's quite common in greyhounds is they wear pajamas, so they're like fleece onesies. But if you've got a dog that's struggling with a joint, that's a big ask for them to stand on three legs to get a really flexed limb through a very small hole. So if you are thinking about coats, think about the ease of getting it on for the dog and how comfortable that will be for them.
Mm.
So, while some of these things are great in for some dogs, it's the same as anything else. Think about what's best for the individual. And it might be even just then breaking it down. So have the body wrap on and then have a lightweight coat over the top, or even just a piece of fabric so that it's not going over the head, there's no fastenings, etc., just placed over the top so that they've got that sense of it as well.
Yeah, definitely. And that whole thing of moving feet, because Remy had to, she's not old, but she had to wear pajamas to protect her wound that she had. And yeah, after a few days, she was getting really fed up of putting her foot through the hole. And I'm like, I totally get this, but just a couple more days.
Yeah, honest, this is for your
Yeah,
own good.
yeah. And that was quite a big hole. So
Yes,
yeah,
yeah, they are on those body protector.
yeah.
The recovery suit, was it
Yeah,
one of
that's the one.
those? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like pajamas for her. It was so funny. But I think she quite liked it actually. Um, so then we've got our T-Touch groundwork or our playground for higher learning. How might we use this with our older dogs?
So again, think about how we would like to keep them mobile, fit,
Mhm.
change things around a little bit. So also we tend to put the same things out in the same order. So mix it up a little bit. Doesn't necessarily have to be outside, could be inside. Make sure that they are comfortable with what you're doing. Give them time. So
Mm,
the thing is, we're so busy that sometimes it's thinking about how we're going to fit this in. Doesn't have to be a massive playground that you put down. You could put a couple of elements down, swap it around the next day, have it so that it's to hand. So don't put it away.
mm,
Obviously, don't leave it down so somebody's going to fall over it, but it's about finding that balance of what you can use. So, for example, poles, are we going to make them into a labyrinth for the dog to walk around? Well, for our seniors, we might need that considerably wider.
mm,
Remember that we don't have to go all the way around the labyrinth. Actually, they can step out if they've got too close to the edge and they've not got enough room to turn. But giving them that thinking time to work out where they need to place their feet and the message to go from here to the feet and then moving them as well. I have a video of Harrison the first time I did some weave cones with him, and they were a metre and a half, nearly 2 meters apart. And he was a younger dog, but as an ex-racing greyhound, it's not the kind of thing that they've ever done before. So there was just that moment as he went around the second cone to go round the third, there was just that moment's pause. And it's really easy to just keep going on, but just keep them in your peripheral vision and watch for those moments where the body's going, oh, what do I do now? Where do I put this foot? And it was just that really short second or two that you just kind of, what do I do now?
mm,
But he did it. And sometimes we put pressure on our dogs, sometimes without thinking about it. So being aware of keeping, if they're on lead, the lead loose,
mm,
being aware of our posture and how close we are, give them space to turn as well, can really help with that flexibility. And with flexibility of the body comes that flexibility of the mind as well. So doesn't have to be too overthought, just do a little bit every now and then. Just have it in your plan for the day. And one thing that I always used to struggle with was you've got so much fit in a day, you almost run out of day.
Mm,
But I was reading something about time management and organization, and one thing that really helped me, and it's helped clients as well, is to have something that you put it in front of. So, for example, before you sit down to watch the telly at night, if that's part of your routine, or maybe before you start to cook tea, or maybe you do it in the morning before a walk, so that it's actually part of that day rather than thinking, oh, yes, I'll do it tomorrow. And then you
mm,
run out of day.
yeah.
So actually have it as part of your routine, whatever that is, because everybody's household routine is very different. But find something that you could slot it in a few minutes beforehand.
Yeah, definitely. And it reminds me, like normally in the summer, I leave a load of equipment out in my garden. And so if we've been out in the field and we've had a little walk and then we come back and it's like, oh yeah, let's do a little bit of this. And they absolutely love it, the pair of them. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a nice way for them to cool down after walks
yeah,
as well.
yeah,
Just
definitely.
have that awareness of how they're moving, how they're turning. They may have been running around, they may not have been, but actually thinking about that flexibility and just cooling down once they've come back and then that they can go and have a chill.
Yeah, and we can also use groundwork with items that perhaps we need to teach them to walk on. So perhaps a ramp, if they're going to use a ramp to get in the car. With Chloe, I started with free work. I had some kind of raised elements for her to explore on her own. Then when I saw she was comfortable kind of stepping up, I'm like, right, okay, now we're going to pop you on the lead and we're going to use it as groundwork to teach her to walk up steps so that she could then walk up the steps I built so that she could get onto my bed because she wasn't able to jump up and down anymore. So
Yeah.
it's using it for kind of life skills as well, isn't it? To so that it makes life easier for them. And I know, obviously, Remy does a lot of this as well. And with her recent operation, I went out into the shed and I was like, right, it needs a raised surface. And I had this nice raised block. So I knew when she came home, she'd want to just crash on the sofa, but it was going to be too much for her to jump. And so I popped this big bit of wood on the floor right next to the sofa. And it was so easy for her, and she's done so much of this stuff. It wasn't a big deal, and she's just like stepping up onto the sofa. She crashed out and then did a load of ear slides with her. But, and this is the thing, even if people haven't got a dog in their golden years at the moment, we can start doing these sorts of things now with them, can't we? So that when they do actually need to use a ramp or a step to get on the sofa, they already know how to, isn't it?
It's partly that, absolutely. The other thing I would say about the groundwork is when we're using the different surfaces, it teaches them confidence with their feet.
Mm,
And, whether you're using steps, there's all sorts of different makes, whether it's for inside or what some people prefer steps for the car.
yeah,
Some of those have like rubber
yeah.
surfaces on, some of them are more like carpeted. That there's real variety. Whereas if the dog is really comfortable with stepping onto different surfaces, it's one less thing to worry about. It's not oh, that surface feels weird. And it's one of the things that I encourage my clients to do before they need it.
Mm,
So if you've got a dog, and I love using different surfaces, it's such an amazing way of building confidence, as well as that body awareness and knowing where their feet are being placed. Because once a dog is physically challenged, it's an even greater ask for them to do new things that might be physically challenging for them, particularly like a ramp.
Mm.
A lot of the cars I see, sometimes I kind of look at them and go, oh, that's so high. And they've got these smaller dogs that are jumping in. It's kind of, yes, I know what the next thing is going to be on our list here, because that is physically a massive ask for them. So having them comfortable walking along legs of
Mm.
something not challengingly narrow, but something that they know I can put my foot in front of another and I'm okay on this. The different surfaces, because the angle's really important as well, because if they're doing something that is too steep, they may not be physically capable of it.
No.
So it really depends on your dog, where they sleep, you know, which part of the car do they go into? Are they in the back? We have a van for the
Mm.
dogs, so it's actually quite low. But one of our dogs was quite poorly, actually, with immune issues, and it really affected his mobility. It can be something as simple as you might only need one step if it's a bigger dog and it's a lower vehicle. So the IKEA fold out gym mats, the plus think
Mm.
mats, perfect for that.
Yep.
And he could step onto it. It's solid, just a tiny bit of give, and it was wide enough and it was deep enough for him to be able to do that. Because there's so many different aspects for each individual dog that we've got to bear in mind. But if they're comfortable and confident, then it's so much easier for them. So I encourage clients to use steps for the settee, ramp either for the settee, depends on the shape of the house and the size of the dog and everything
Yeah.
else. For some dogs, it might be enough just to have a footstool that's kind of a halfway
Yeah.
between them. And the other biggie that I'm surprised I haven't mentioned yet are rugs. That's always top of my list.
It
What
is.
kind of flooring have you got? And
Mm.
so many people now have laminate, wooden, vinyl. It looks fabulous, but it's so easy for them to slip on it. And it would be like us walking around on ice for some of our dogs all the time, and how much that tenses our body. And a
Mm.
lot of us end up leaning forward. It shifts our shoulders. You know, the dogs spend even more time usually than us in a house. That is predominantly where they are.
Yeah.
That is so big an ask for them physically. And it may end up so much that they choose not to move because they don't feel secure. And then you could have an issue with they're not drinking enough because they don't want to get up to go to the water bowl. Or you might start to have toileting incidents because they don't feel safe getting up to go out. So rugs, those non-slip rugs are the most, well, they're kind of top of my list, really, because as I mentioned before, every dog needs to feel safe. And if they don't feel safe under their feet, that's a really big ask. And it might be that you need to clip the fur underneath the pads as well. So
Yeah.
some breeds are really hairy around the pads, and you get these fur that's like this long, and that just adds to the slippiness.
Yeah. I've started cutting Chloe's this year, the little furry bits between her pads. It's actually quite fun. It reminds me of when I was a kid and cutting Barbie's hair. When you shouldn't have done. Sorry, Mum. So yeah. But no, it's really good. It's incredible how quick it grows back. That was what I was so surprised at.
Yeah.
But the difference in Chloe's confidence, we have rugs down. She's got rugs from my bedroom where she likes to sleep, all the way through the living room to the door to the garden, and so she has that clear route, nice and
Mm.
safe for her. But she, since cutting her the hair, on the pads of her feet, she ventures into the rest of the house more confidently. It's fascinating
Yeah,
just by that small adjustment, which takes seconds and is quite fun.
it is. And again, it's if they're sensitive around the feet, again, T-touch can really help
Mm,
with that. Nail clipping. So if you've got a dog who maybe isn't doing as much pavement walks, the nails, sometimes I've read people say, oh, the nails grow quicker when they're older. I think it's more that they're not worn down as much,
mm,
or they're worn unevenly as well. So being able to either clip them or use a grinder or
yeah.
a scratch board, whatever works for your dog, is another important way that they can feel secure both on their feet, but also if their nails are too long, it pushes the whole paw back. So it shifts the weight balance not only from the feet, but all the way up to the shoulder. So again, that's going to have a massive effect on how comfortable they are as they move.
Mm,
And it's going to create muscle imbalances as well. So it's often the little things that make the bigger differences. And rugs
yeah.
are one of them. Like you say, you've got a pathway through the house, which is fab. The other thing I will say is if you've got a bigger dog, make sure your rugs are wide that they can turn round on them.
They're huge.
I wasn't thinking about yours, I'm thinking
No.
generally for people,
Yeah.
because you get some quite narrow runners.
Mm,
But actually, then if the dog reaches a point where they need to turn round, they've not got turning space.
yeah.
So it's about making sure that, observe where your dog likes to go. Make
Mm,
sure there's rugs, there's no little gaps anywhere that a stray foot can just go out. Because if you've got a senior dog who has a chronic problem, either like arthritis or hip dysplasia, whatever it is, you do not want an acute problem on top of that.
no.
And you don't want them slipping and just even, I say even, but just a little bit of a tweak. You know, we know ourselves, if we go over on our ankle, for example, it hurts for days.
Yeah.
And it might not be enough to affect us massively, but we know every time we put our foot down, it's ow, 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 ow. And
Yeah.
we're very aware of it. And we can take pain relief for that. If we're not aware of what our dog is feeling, then that's a little bit harder. So this is where T-touch can make such a big difference to having them being as comfortable as possible for as long as possible, as active as possible.
Yeah.
Old age itself isn't a disease. Some dogs do amazingly well as seniors, but disease does come with old age. So the
Mm,
more we can keep them fit and healthy and everything else that we can do, then the less issues they're likely to have.
mm. Do you find as well, Rachel, because I think it was a couple of years ago now that I got a Dremel for to do Chloe's nails, um, because I noticed she was kind of flinching a little bit. She was like, "Oh God, no!" When I had the clippers, and so I was like, "Well, actually, I'm going to do the Dremel because I think that's a little nicer." Do you think their nails become a little more sensitive as they get older, perhaps?
I don't know if it's so much the nails become more sensitive. I wonder if they're more aware that a tweak of the nail might hurt somewhere else.
Mm,
Greyhounds in particular are quite prone to issues with their toes. They get dislocated and all sorts of horrid things. Um, and if you think about once there's been damage there, that is going to set up joint disease at
mm,
some point. So how many of our dogs have had some, doesn't have to be major damage, minor damage to a digit, and then we're clipping a nail, it may be sore for them.
mm,
And the other thing I would say is some clippers are a little bit more blunt than others.
mm,
So it's also down to not just our technique, but also making sure that they are sharp, because otherwise what tends to happen is we pull the nail inadvertently as we go to clip it. And do you know what? If a grinder works better for her, then
Yeah.
it doesn't matter, does it?
No, no, not at all. And yeah, I haven't got round to doing them with Remy yet. That's a whole nother training issue. Awesome. Right, where have we've been talking about nails and bits and pieces like that. Just out of interest, because I'm intrigued, what lifespan of a pair of nail clippers is on their sharpness?
I think it depends how often you cut the
Well, I
nails.
knew it was going to be it depends.
Well, yeah, it depends. But also, some dogs have really thick nails.
Mm,
So actually, that can be a little bit more blunting. I think you get a sense of when they're starting to go a little bit as they're not snipping as well.
mm,
So I used to use, oh gosh, what make were they? I'm trying to think now. One of the makes that was quite common was the Mickey
mm,
nail clippers, and they were okay, but my favorite now are the red handled Miller Forge
mm,
nail clippers. They are brilliant. They cut so much more easily. I think they must be sharper. I'm looking that I'd say to Jay, can we sharpen these? And he does it for me. Um, but I think if you're having to do them regularly, you kind of get a sense for how much more pressure you're having to use,
mm.
that maybe they start to go to blunt. I think it's something that we don't often think about,
No.
but it is really worth thinking about. And that's why the grinder can sometimes be easier as well, because you can actually see the sandpaper as it's
Mm,
getting worn. Um, And I think for some people as well, it's down to confidence. Clipping a nail is a little bit scary, particularly if they've got black nails and you can't see where the
yeah.
quick is. It's a little bit, "Ooh," especially if they move. Um, so the Dremels are a really good option as a different way of doing it.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Have we covered everything to do with our looking at our dogs as a whole? We've got rugs, we've got nail clipping, the fur under their feet. I'm trying to think. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to say. Raising their dinner bowls and water
Water and feed
bowls.
bowls.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's another thing, and it was strange. I know we had a conversation a couple of years ago now, I think it was, and I had never thought about doing that for Chloe. Remy has her raised stuff because she's a bigger dog, but
yeah.
Chloe being smaller, it hadn't occurred to me. And now she has her little table.
Aw.
She absolutely loves it. And it's just, she just looks so much more at ease, do you know? And again, it doesn't have to be a huge amount, does it? Obviously, it is kind of dog dependent on
Yeah,
how big they are, but
yeah.
just that small amount can make such a huge difference for them, can't it?
It does. And we tend to talk about raising food bowls, but water bowls as well.
Mm,
Um, Apart from the fact it's easier for them, and again, not just for the bigger dogs. If you've got a dog that's physically struggling, what tends to happen is you get all this weight forward again. It's actually not encouraging that square stand.
mm,
So again, you're encouraging a position that isn't overly beneficial for them. Whereas actually, if you can raise the water bowl, so they're not having to lift the head up and lean in, but sort of it's comfortable to just do that, then actually what we're able to do is kind of have going to the water bowl more comfortable so they'll drink more. So we're back to that drinking more again.
mm,
And also that it's kind of part of their balancing exercise as well, to make sure that they are moving and standing the best way that they can. And also, a lot of food and water bowls tend to be in the kitchen, and kitchens tend to be, hello, kitchens tend to be where even more people have tiled floors or vinyl or something. So have a rug going towards the water and feed bowls as well, so that they again are really secure in how they're standing as well. I've got one client who every time I see them now, they go, I can't get over how raising the water bowl made such a big difference.
Yeah.
And it really does. Like I said before, the little things make the big difference.
Absolutely. And it's also that feeling of safety, isn't it, for them? Do you know, if they're perhaps they don't feel that safe on the slippery surface, and so they try and eat quicker, and like even we get indigestion if we eat too quick, don't we? So,
Yeah.
it's just that whole kind of rushing because I don't feel safe and I want to get it over and done with as quickly as possible. She licking the wall.
She is licking the wall. I have never seen her do that before. I'm sure she's doing it just on, I'm on camera. Hello. She says, yes, you've got the treat bag there, mother. That's why I'm doing it.
Bless her.
I'm going to lick the wall.
I
Oh,
love it. Well, it makes a change. In my house, it's just like splats of slobber from Remy all over the walls. So,
to be fair, if she
brilliant.
drinks water, it does come out both sides and she
Mm.
dribbles it across the floor. Yeah, she's the messiest drinker I've ever known.
Brilliant. Rachel, is
So, yeah,
there is there anything else that you would like to add about how T-Touch can help our golden oldies, or do you think we've covered the majority of things?
I think one other thing that helps T-Touch is it gives us, as the caregivers, the guardians, something that we can do proactively.
Mm,
So I think, it's easy as our dogs get older, we're thinking, oh, they're getting older. Oh, we start to worry about things. But having the beauty of T-Touch is a way that we can spend real quality time with our dogs to do something that is so beneficial for them, to help them feel comfortable in the body, maybe feel a little bit more relaxed if they've been struggling.
mm,
Because for our senior dogs as well, it may even be going to the park, and all those dogs running around might be a little bit more scary where it never used to be.
mm,
Or maybe I mentioned briefly before about their eyesight or their hearing, they
yeah.
start to get a little bit more concerned about things that they've never been concerned about before, that actually we can give them that feeling of safety, that quality time with us, because maybe we're not doing 2, 3 hour walks, which, you know, aren't necessarily ideal for them. For our seniors, it's so much better to split the walks into two in a day
Mm,
rather than one really long one, because it keeps them moving, so it keeps the joints moving a little bit more, but without putting more strain on it.
mm,
So I think, T-touch is part of every day for me with
yeah.
our dogs, whether they're really young, whether they're adult, the middle life
Yeah.
stages, or going into senior. It's something that we can give back to them because they give us so much all
Mm.
the time. I mean, they are perfect. Um, but it's a way that we can spend time with them and do something that is great for them and help us spend that time with them when maybe we're not doing other things. I mean, we can
Mm.
do. I started to do hoopers with Idris when he was about 12, and it's a case of age shouldn't be stopping us.
No.
It's not a case of, oh, they're too old to do that.
Mm.
It's about finding things that they can do.
Yeah.
and not thinking, oh, they can't do this anymore. Thinking, okay, well, maybe we're not doing that. How about we do this instead?
Yeah. Because we can teach our old dogs new tricks.
Always,
Always.
always.
Absolutely. Rachel, I've got one more question for you. What is your favorite tea touch and why?
Do you know, it changes depending sometimes on the dog that I'm working with, because you kind of
Yeah.
have that aha moment, you kind of, yes. I think from a personal perspective, one of our dogs came to us as a foster at 6 months, and he struggled with so many things. He was the most delightful, beautiful, clever dog, but he struggled with other dogs. He didn't read them very well. He had separation anxiety. He was very sensitive to contact, had sleep startle.
Mm.
Um, so you had to be careful when he was sat next to you. And he was one of those dogs who would also sometimes sleep with his eyes open. So that wasn't always helpful.
Yeah.
But to begin with him, it was really quite tricky to find that starting T-touch, because he was a youngster. He had lots going on and he was very sensitive through the body. And for him, it was the Springbok.
Mm.
And it wasn't first on my repertoire or second or third. People who've been watching your brilliant series will know there's quite a few tea touches. So it wasn't that immediate thought, but actually once I started that, it was kind of click, and it's kind of yes.
Yeah.
So the Springbok is one that is always close to my heart because it shows what might be our starting point. And they
Mm.
will show us. They always tell us. We just have to be listening to their whispers.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think from that perspective, I would say the Springbok. But for my seniors, I do like the abalone and the snail's
Mm.
tail. You see, I'm doing
Mm.
it again, aren't I? The little quarter
Yeah.
you touch and then taking the skin gently back. It's just so nice when they are sensitive through the
Mm.
body, and they are maybe having changes going on, that they're not as relaxed. So yeah, I'll stop now.
Yeah. I love it. It's so hard to say, isn't it? Which is your favorite? That's why it was a
It
fun
is.
question to ask.
Definitely a hard
Amazing.
question.
Thank you so much for this evening, and for your little furry friend there for coming and saying hello to us as well. Bless
She
her.
says, well, I've got to be in on the act.
Absolutely. Rachel, it's been awesome. Thank you so, so much. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you for having me join you. I've really enjoyed it.
You're very welcome. Take care for now. Bye
Bye.
bye.